Last season, the Toronto Raptors shocked a lot of people when they won 48 games and finished as the 5th seed in the NBA's Eastern Conference, but now the conference is more loaded than it's been in years, and that has a lot of NBA fans, including Raptors fans, thinking there's going to be regression for this group. But in today's video, we're going to break down why fans are overlooking how good this Toronto Raptors team is, and why that actually includes Raptors fans like even myself. Let's get into it. What's going on, NBA and Raptors fans? It's Jacob here back with Amateur Hour Sports for another Toronto Raptors YouTube video. On this channel, I bring you the greatest coverage and analysis on the latest Toronto Raptors news, so make sure you keep it locked by subscribing to Amateur Hour Sports. Help us on the road to 12,000 subscribers and get yourself ready for preseason coming at you on Sunday. So excited for the return of Raptors basketball. Make sure as well, if you find yourself enjoying this video along the way, you drop a like to give that extra bit of support to the channel. So what we're going to break down in this video, we're talking about why fans, including Raptors fans like myself even, are overlooking how good this Toronto Raptors team is, because the reality, this Raptors team was excellent last season. It was supposed to be a transition year for this bunch, but they wowed NBA fans by winning 48 games and finishing as the 5th seed in the Eastern Conference. That set up a first round date with the Philadelphia 76ers, where admittedly we fell to a 3-0 hole, valiantly fought back to make it 3-2, but ultimately lost in 6 games. I think it was decently respectable in the end that we lost in 6 games, and we were extremely happy just to be in the playoffs that season, but can we be looking to actually find more playoff success than just actually making the playoffs this season? Lots of NBA fans are thinking that's not going to happen because the Raptors are competing with some great teams in the conference all of a sudden. I was looking at last season, how the Raptors finished 5th, and wow, this team is a super young team, super young core. The best players in this team are only 28 years old. We have the rookie of the year on our team. Why can we not win more games next season? Why can we not go from 48 to 50 plus wins this season? Because even last season, we could have won 50 plus games if we could beat the damn Detroit Pistons. So let's go and do that this season. But a lot of that thought process for myself got derailed as I saw all these other teams in the Eastern Conference really strengthening themselves. You had the Atlanta Hawks, who pretty early on in the offseason added in Dejounte Murray. Later on, you had the Cleveland Cavaliers adding in Donovan Mitchell to an already great group of young players. And then with the Brooklyn Nets, like, they didn't add in anybody really in particular that wows me, but Kevin Durant is back. Kyrie Irving is back, and it seems like he has a little bit of a different mindset. Joe Harris coming back from injury, signing TJ Warden, trading for Royce O'Neal. Like, this is going to be, it seems like, a great team on paper. But the beauty of the NBA is that the game is not played on paper. It is played on hardwood. So all of these teams adding in great pieces. The Raptors not really doing much in the offseason. They did add in a good player, a great signing in my opinion, adding an Otto Porter Jr. to this bench that definitely needed floor spacing and definitely needed some shooting to their team. But is that going to be enough for this Raptors team to continue to compete in this very loaded Eastern Conference? And for a while, I was kind of convincing myself that all of these teams had really caught up to the Raptors, if not surpassed this team. But the more and more I think about how the Raptors kind of lay themselves out here in the Eastern Conference, the more I feel like Raptors fans, NBA fans, and even myself, the more I feel like I am underselling how good this team is. And I want to tell you guys that you need to stop underselling them yourselves, because a lot of you have maintained that confidence and I applaud you for it. But let's break down the Eastern Conference and what it's going to look like this season, and based on my perception of it going into the season. So I believe there are 9 teams truly fighting for a playoff position in the Eastern Conference. That is the Boston Celtics, the Bucks, the Sixers, the Heat, the Raptors, the Nets, the Hawks, the Bulls, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. All of these teams have playoff aspirations 100%. So how do the Raptors really stack up against the rest of the competition? So for starters, I think there are 3 tiers of team here. I think there are the teams that are in the same tier as the Raptors, the teams that are below the tier the Raptors are in, and let's be honest with ourselves, there are 3 teams that are above the Raptors level right now, and that is the Bucks, the Celtics, and the Philadelphia 76ers. Don't really need to go too deep into that. Like, the Celtics coming off NBA Finals, I think they'll be fine. Even without Udoka, like, they'll be fine. Not as good. Still be fine, though. Great team. The Bucks, we know how good they are with Giannis. The Sixers, they made some pretty good acquisitions in the offseason. They're going to be looking to continue to improve, especially with young players like Tyrese Maxey. Don't need to go too far into all of that stuff. Then there is the tier of teams that are below the Raptors. And I actually think there's only one team I'm confidently saying is below the Raptors. And I believe that it's the Chicago Bulls. I think they're going to be the 9th seed here and probably on the outside looking in after the play-in tournament. But we'll have to see there. Again, there's going to be some aspirations for playoff success there. Lonzo Ball's injured. That's kind of going to derail it. When he comes back, we'll kind of see what they look like and if DeRozan can follow up that insane season that he had. But then there are the rest of them in the same tier as the Raptors. I believe those teams are the Miami Heat, the Atlanta Hawks, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the Brooklyn Nets. So with the Raptors involved, 5 teams fighting for 3 spots to avoid the play-in tournament. And now let's kind of talk about individually how I feel like the Raptors stack up against these teams. So the Miami Heat were the 1 seed last season. They didn't really do anything in the offseason but lose PJ Tucker. Now you're thinking, okay, just PJ Tucker, not a big deal, but they don't really have any power forwards on that roster. And there was big reliance on Martin and Vincent last season to step up to the plate to help out this team. Now, they did so rather spectacularly, if you ask me, but not super convinced they're going to be able to sustain that. The Miami Heat, on paper, don't stack up very well against the Raptors. They always just find a way to get it done on the court. They're opposite of the Brooklyn Nets in that regard, because the Brooklyn Nets, I feel like, while on paper they're fantastic, on the court, you don't really know how that group is going to gel together, especially after Kevin Durant vocally said he wanted the coach and the GM to get fired, and he's going to be playing under both in the season. The Miami Heat, with Eric Spoelstra, great coach. They always just find ways to win, and I kind of respect that. The Brooklyn Nets, I mean, if these guys are gelling, they could be the best team in the NBA, let alone just the Eastern Conference. But that is a big wild card for the Brooklyn Nets. And I think the Miami Heat are a little bit of a wild card in that regard as well, because just, again, the talent just doesn't seem to be there on paper. But then you go to the other teams like the Atlanta Hawks and the Cavaliers. So for the Atlanta Hawks, yes, they added in Dejounte Murray. I've maintained from the start of the offseason, even after they acquired Murray, the Raptors are still better than that team. And I'm going to explain why here. 2 guards as your best players typically doesn't work out extremely well as it comes to the NBA. I get Trae Young is a superstar. Dejounte Murray is an all-star and is a fantastic player, but the rest of the team, DeAndre Hunter is just a worse OG Anunoby. John Collins, good player, pales in comparison to a lot of what the Raptors have. Clint Capella is not what he used to be, and the depth on this team is going to be a little bit hurting. The Raptors, depth was a problem last season. Even so, one of the best starting 5s in the NBA. 5 players, all 5 starters averaged above 15 points per game. The Raptors are the only team in the NBA who can say they had 5 players average 15 plus. So that is an excellent start. The bench, a lot of what was wrong last season, we've corrected it. Boucher himself has just rejuvenated himself as a little bit of a different player, being that energy guy. Thaddeus Young is a nice little glue piece to have in that bench unit, which I really like. Precious Achiuwa was in the Rising Stars game last season. That 23-year-old is a rising star in the NBA who I think can improve from 9 points per game up to 12 and 13 points per game, as we discussed in my previous video. Otto Porter Jr., as I spoke about earlier in this one. Great player to add in on your bench. Needed the floor spacing, needed the shooting, a little bit of championship pedigree as well, which I'm going to say is quite a nice addition to this team. I think that 9-man rotation works extremely well. The Raptors in media day seem pretty fond of somebody like Hernangomez as well, who could just slip himself into that rotation as well. We'll kind of have to see there, but really like the 9-man rotation we can put out there. Not a huge fan of what the Atlanta Hawks can do as far as it goes to their 9-man rotation, even their starting 5. I think the Raptors are just better in both regards. Better than the Hawks. Now, the Cleveland Cavaliers is where I've maybe overlooked the Raptors the most, because I've been on record on this channel specifically talking about how, well, with that Donovan Mitchell trade, I think it's safe to say the Cavaliers are better than the Raptors now, but the more I think about it, thinking about that Cavs team, thinking about this Raptors team who've already gone through, I feel like the Raptors are still better. I get they had Donovan Mitchell, borderline superstar. I get you've got Garland, who was an all-star last season. Jared Allen, he was an all-star. I don't consider him an all-star player despite him being an all-star last season, but I respect that. He was on the all-star team. Then you move further forward to a guy like Evan Mobley, who was second Rookie of the Year voting. A very nice core of 4 players. The small 4 position, a little bit hurting. Dean Wade looks like he's going to be starting there, but the bench, not as strong as what the Raptors have there. Kevin Love was great last season, but I don't think he's going to follow that up. Karis LeVert is not progressing in his career as we maybe thought he would have been 3 or 4 years ago. Then you look at Okoro, and he's struggling to really find any sort of role in the NBA, because the fact of the matter is, he just can't shoot and doesn't do enough else other places on the court. So looking at that team, I mean, as far as the Cavs go, sure, it's a good team, but I think the Raptors match up extremely well. I think we have the perfect guards to stop that tandem of Garland as well as Donovan Mitchell. I think the speed of Garland can kind of hurt Fred VanVleet, but Fred is a great defender. Gary Trent's a good defender as well. I think they can manage there. Scotty Barnes has always matched up last season very well with Evan Mobley. I trust him in that endeavor. The small forward position, Dean Wade, OG Anunoby, not that big of a threat there. Maybe get OG on a guy like Donovan Mitchell instead. Move one of the guards out to Dean Wade. You look at Jared Allen. The size, that definitely can be a little bit of an issue, but we can use Scotty Barnes. We can use Pascal Siakam there and do our best to manage him to try to keep him out of paint, as well as using players on our bench like Prez Achiuwa. I think we stack up very well against this Cleveland Cavaliers team. As far as winning games, your record over the course of a season, I think that we are less prone to be derailed by injuries. You saw them absolutely fall apart last season when Jared Allen got injured. The Raptors have shown year after year, other than the Tampa season, their ability to continue to win games with the next man up attitude when players go down injured. It doesn't really seem to slow them down very much. Sure, it might affect a few wins here and there, but ultimately, they continue to win games at a great rate, even when they are dealing with injuries. So, as a result of all these things I've kind of laid out here, the more I explain it, the more I think about it, the more I feel like we are overlooking how good this Raptors team is. Miami, bit of a wild card because, how good are they going to perform again? Raptors, I think, have a chance to go past them. The Brooklyn Nets, we don't know. We just don't know. It could all blow up. We don't know. I mean, they almost missed the playoffs last season and got swept. They could be a team the Raptors pass. Cleveland, I think we're better than them. Would it surprise me if Cleveland finished ahead of us? Not really, but I think we're better than them. Atlanta, we're better than them. If they finished above us, would it surprise me? Yeah, honestly, a little bit it would. And Chicago, even more so. It would surprise me even more. So, going through all these teams, I feel like the Raptors can really dial in and lock in a 4th or 5th seed in the Eastern Conference. And if they can do that, we really have to feel like we can win a playoff series this season. I think ultimately, I'd be content if the Raptors avoided the play-in, made the playoffs, had a competitive first-round series, and ultimately lost. I'd be content. I would think it's a great step in the right direction. We're continuing to progress, hungry for something next season. But for this season, I would be really happy with this season if the Raptors managed to come out of a first-round playoff series. I believe they have the team to do it. I believe they have the talent to do it. As these young players are developing, especially Scotty Barnes, who is looking to make a huge jump this season, the Raptors are a force to be reckoned with in the Eastern Conference. And even if you don't have them maybe as high as I do, you certainly have to understand that this is a very talented team that is going to be difficult to play against in any sort of setting in the NBA this season. Teams who have the Raptors like 9th or 8th in the Eastern Conference, I just can't understand it. This team has proven to be far beyond that, especially last season. And all of these guys on the team are just going to be even better this season. I can't see any sort of regression from any individual on this team beyond like a Thaddeus Young or like maybe, I don't know, not even an Otto Porter Jr. Like I really fail to see any player regressing. Maybe Fred gets a little bit of a load off from his touches, but he's still going to be a lethal 3-point shooter, which is one of the most impressive weapons offensively in the NBA. So with all this into consideration, the Raptors are getting overlooked. Your teams don't want to play them. Your teams are trying to get a lot of the best players that we have, and for very good reason. This is going to be an exciting season, and I think the Raptors are poised, again, to follow up that 48-win season with the same or even more wins. Let's get to 50. Bring on the NBA season. So what do you make of the Raptors' chances in the NBA this season? Do you think I'm overstepping it and overrating the Raptors here? Or are you a big fan of this team? Think they can go win 50 games? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, because that is it for me for today. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please, if you did enjoy, be sure to drop a like on the video. It does go a long way to supporting the channel. And make sure you're subscribed to Amateur Sports for more videos and content just like this. We're getting so close to 12,000 subs. You can help us along the way. And as we get close to that milestone, I want to remind you guys, we have watch parties for Raptors games coming back to YouTube after like a year and a half off from doing them here. We did them on Twitch. We're bringing them back to YouTube, starting with the preseason game on October 2nd. I hope to see you guys there. As the Raptors, I believe they're playing the Bulls. I'm going to go live 30 minutes before the opening tip. and we're going to get you right with that Raptors content all throughout this season. Have your notifications on this channel so you never miss out on those streams, and I'll see you again next time for another video.